in the hospital here in Toronto, where I get very much to live in this a dream where I know that person who was stabbed is getting what he needs right now. He's getting a CT scan. He'll get blood if he needs it. He'll get a surgeon. Will be right there if he needs it. Yet I know that when I have my friends who are struggling in Juba to open up the hospitals there, working in Ethiopia, are dealing with no blood and no surgeons. And in the absence of an answer to those questions of why they exist, you're kind of left with that question inhabiting you and discovering, even if it's only a small amount, like Emmanuel said, whatever you can put in that direction matters. It is meaningful. So I kind of felt when I walked in here, I saw all these people, and they were at another event nearby, and I came in here, and I always wonder where is everybody? Why doesn't everyone care about the same things that I seem to care about, that my friends seem to care about? What else are they talking about? What are they talking about? Sometimes, I don't always talk about Ethiopia, I don't always talk about South Sudan, so I know, but I can't imagine a more important discussion for us all to be having about how we can end this tragedy that's continuing to claim so many lives. So I wrote a few words about what I know about peace, and I must confess, no one's ever pointed a gun at me in anger. No one's ever forced me from my home. No one's ever raped someone close to me, and I've watched them be changed for the rest of their lives. So there's things I can't know. I don't know what that's like. And I don't know what it would be like if that was still happening. That if I'd lost 3 members of my family already to something like that, and I was going to lose 3 more, would I respond in violence? Possibly. Anger? Definitely. Would I have enough depth of character in my soul to forgive those people? I don't know. I hope so. I don't know. I don't know. But that's what it takes to end that cycle of violence that keeps on moving around and around, that claims families, claims their lives. How do you, that's the frustrating part about peace, is that it's possible in our lifetimes. Everyone just has to put down their weapons. Not just the guns, the weapons, the hateful speech, the rumors, the gossip, the othering of people saying they're not like us. Those weapons have to be placed down as well too. Anyway, I said anger lives in the hearts of men and women, mostly men. Oh, sorry, mostly men. But so too peace as well. So as I work, I thought when I went to Sudan, I was just going to take on this big problem. I was going to go and work from there to another place like it, and we were just going to fight this great fight. And I didn't realize how much more work I had to do on myself. To not say that when I saw someone who was Misri or Dinka, it didn't matter. Actually, it didn't matter. It wasn't a notion, an idea, it's the truth. So, what is peace made of? For me, it's made of forgiveness, acceptance, and love. And forgiveness for yourself and for those who have wronged you. Acceptance of yourself, accepting the people who have hurt you, loving yourself, and loving those who harmed you. It sounds almost impossible. Even just loving yourself sounds hard. But those other things, that's the ingredients of peace. when I looked around the world, and I'm so grateful to have people in this community. Like I said, when Emmanuel asked me, I said, of course. I had a shift, I just tried to switch it. I got someone to cover for me. I will always be present with you when we talk about this. It's important that we do it. Because people, for sure, are talking about war in greater numbers. That's for sure. And I know this, I look at this conflict in South Sudan and the one between it and Sudan. There are answers to it. I know if you poured 1,000 weapons in Kensington Market where I live, someone would die tonight. For sure. No more weapons into that place, right? Get rid of those weapons that are already there. Turn them to plowshares. Give opportunities for those young men who are trying to make a living and to have a meaningful education, meaningful economic emancipation, all those things we know. And I hold this as a great shame. I feel the Prime Minister should be here tonight. I hold it as a great tragedy and a great shame that when this newest country came into the world, we did so little to welcome it. We knew it. History told us that this was possible and likely, and so little. So now I feel our obligation is now much greater. So what I just a couple more things to say, and then I'm going to step off. But when I think about how these things perpetuate themselves, the war in South Sudan, East, it's called East Africa, and that's tied to the greater wars now existing with the greater powers who are selling weapons and with permission to have these testing grounds for foreign battles on foreign soil where they don't have to have their own soldiers get hurt. That's for sure happening. I wonder how can it be the case where you have this people in positions of power perpetuating conflict when it's so antithetical to human happiness. And I think what underlies their conviction and their anger is this deep grief that all this time they had the tools of peace in these and in here, and they failed to use it. It's easier sometimes to go forward and not look inside your own soul. Because if they did, the grief is so deep. There's so much mourning that has to be done before this would end. These people are not willing to do it. And I don't mean you. I mean, I'm not going to mention some of these people's names. It's easier to not admit you're wrong and go forward with violence, because to look inside yourself and take responsibility for the grief that you brought to millions and millions of people. I feel it. I felt it. People have this fake idea that if you go to some place like South Sudan and women have 6 babies and they lose 2, that they're used to it or something. Are you crazy? That's a false idea. The grief that these largely men have inside their souls is so immense that they're not willing to fix it. So we're made with this world of people still just making up excuses of why this needs to continue to happen, when all we want is to be sad for the lives and the friends and the sisters and the brothers and the parents that we've lost. Give us that dignity to grieve, and then we can start to form peace. So, peace is possible in our times. We must continue to meet like this in small groups, in larger ones, and put as much energy, mental energy towards creating in the world, as much for creating in ourselves. When I have anger come up within me, I must let that not speak out hatefully and examine my own actions so I don't perpetuate this dangerous, vicious cycle that will continue to feed on itself. And I just want to end with the final story that about peace. I don't know how many of you remember Nelson Mandela when he was freed. Now the power slowly shifted to the ANC. People were caught suspecting that there was going to be a large amount of violence towards the white Afrikaners because of the many decades of hatred, terror, that they inflicted on the black population. And Mandela, who has this great depth of character, him and Desmond Tutu, were instrumental in preventing that from happening. They knew that cycle. They knew that if they gave just as hard as they'd been given, that he would just burn that place right down. So, unfortunately, not everyone felt this way. And Mandela's number two, a man was named Chris Hani, I don't know if you know that name. One day, he was assassinated by members of the Conservative Party, the Afrikaner Conservative Party. He was assassinated, and that whole country was just going to go up like a tinderbox. The clerk, in his wisdom, gave Mandela control of the TV and the radio at that time. Just take it, because this is going to explode. At the funeral, thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people showed up. And there were a lot of anger at what had happened because they killed this man who was Mandela's the leader, the important leader in the ANC. Mandela was number one on this hit list, and this guy was number three. They got the number three guy. And they knew, they found the list, they knew that they were plotting to kill all these men. And Desmond Tutu said to this great massive audience of people, he said, "We are all God's children." And everyone was silent. And he kept on repeating it, "We are all God's children," until some people started to say, repeated it again. He kept on saying, "We are all God's children," until thousands and thousands of people were screaming at the top of the lung, "We are all God's children." And then he said, "We are all God's children, black or white." Silence. "We are all God's children, black or white." A little bit of voices here. And then he had 100,000 people saying, "We are," screaming at the top of their lungs, "We are all God's children, black or white." Prevented that cycle, that vicious cycle that kind of causes famines, that kind of causes tears families and countries apart. And the depth of their character from that generosity of their own spirit. So it's possible. So, I believe that we are all God's children, black or white, man and woman, Sudanese, South Sudanese. The more that we expand our notion of who we include in our family, the better we'll be able to live with ourselves, live peace within ourselves, peace within our world. And may we become